Hi, my name is Heather, and today I'm going to show you how to lay out a children's book page for Amazon KDP in Photoshop. The first thing that you want to do is look at what size that you want your book to be. Amazon KDP has this help page right here that has all of the different sizes. And if you go down to trim size, these are all your options for the book. So you want to pick which one that you want for your book. I picked 8.25 by 8.25 for mine, so that's what I'll use for this example, but you can pick any of these other ones for yours. And if I go down to the bleed portion, this just kind of explains what the bleed means. And I always like to do it with bleed for a children's book or anything that you're going to have an image on it, because you want the image to go all the way to the edge of the page and then get like trimmed off a little bit so that it goes all the way and it doesn't have a margin here. If we scroll down a little more, then you'll see the page size that you're going to need with bleed. So you want to look at the one on this side. This would be if you weren't using bleed, but since you are going to have bleed and you're going to have the image go all the way to the edge of the page, you're going to want the page to be a little bit bigger so they have a little bit that they can cut off. For example, for my 8.25 by 8.25 book, I'm going to go over to this side, and this says that the page needs to be 8.375 by 8.5. So this is going to give it a little bit extra to trim off. So like towards the edges of your page, you're going to want just not important stuff. So just like extend the background of the picture or whatever where it can get cut off. And this is how big it's actually going to be. When you're making your drawing for the book, first you want to make sure that you're drawing it at the right resolution. And the way you're going to do that is you always want it to be 300 dpi. And let's say, for example, you are going to do your book as 8.25 by 8.25. You can look at the page size with bleed, because of course you want to have that little bit of extra of your drawing around the edges. So if you have 8.375 inches here, we're going to go to the calculator and just do 8.375 times 300, because we want it to be 300 dpi. So we're going to have 300 pixels for each inch. So that's why we're multiplying it by 300. And then this is the result, 2512.5. You just want to round this up and make it 2513. So you're going to have it 2513 pixels across. The height is going to be 8.5. So then we're going to do 8.5 times 300. And that's going to equal 2550 pixels. So the height is going to be 2550 pixels. Just make sure those are the pixels of your artwork that you're creating for your book. If you're creating it digitally, like in Procreate or something like that. If you're actually just painting it traditionally, then that's fine. You just want to make sure you scan it in at a pretty high resolution. When I brought mine to get scanned in, I actually had them do it at 600 dpi. And then that way, when I brought it in, it was like really big, and I was able to just scale it down, and that was fine. Because you can always scale it down, but you don't want to have to scale it up. You're going to end up making it blurry. Now to Photoshop, and you can go to Adobe Creative Cloud and download a trial version, and there's also student discounts and teacher discounts. But you'll need Photoshop and Adobe Acrobat if you want to do it the same way I'm doing, but you can probably find some kind of service online where you can combine the images to make a PDF, and then you wouldn't need to get Acrobat. But either way, you can go ahead and get the free trial of Photoshop if you want, and the paid version I believe is $20.99 a month. And there's also coupon codes sometimes, so definitely check Retail Me Not and you might be able to get a good deal on it. So I'm gonna go to Photoshop, and I already have my artwork out here of my ants with the cheese. I'm going to start with a new document, so File, New, and then want your resolution to be 300 dpi, and your color mode CMYK. And then for the width, change it to inches. And then you want to make sure that you do what it says on Amazon KDP. So again, we have 8.375 inches by 8.5. So we'll do 8.375 by 8.5. Then we do create. And this is going to be our page. If you want to set up your guides so that you know where your page is going to be trimmed, first you want to make sure your rulers are showing. So you can do Command R on a Mac and that'll hide and show your rulers, or Control R on Windows. And when you have your rulers showing, you'll have your inches along the top and along the side. If you don't see these in inches right here, they might be in like pixels or points. Then you'll want to go to Photoshop, Preferences, and go to Units and Rulers. And then just change your rulers to inches. And then you can just pull your rulers out. So you want to have 1/8 of an inch around each side for the bleed that's going to get cut off. So if you look at your ruler, this would be 1/2 inch because it's halfway between the 0 and the 1. This would be 1/4 of an inch. So you want to do just half of that. And you can actually be exact about it. If you wanted, you could do View and then New Guide. And then you would actually just do 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. And then, yeah, so you can see I was a little bit off. But it's a little bit trickier doing it that way because when you do the guide over on this side, you'll have to take the width of the canvas and subtract 1/8 of an inch. And so sometimes it's just easier to drag it, and it doesn't really need to be totally exact anyways. So we're going to go 1/8 of an inch down this way, 1/8 of an inch from this edge, and then 1/8 of an inch down here. And we actually don't need one of these depending on which side of the book that your page is on when it's open. Wherever the gutter of the book is going to be, or where the pages meet the spine of the book, you won't need it there because it's not going to get trimmed off. So for example, if this is the page that's going to be on the left in the book, then the right is going to be at the spine of the book, and that's not going to get trimmed off. So we can actually take this and just move it off to the ruler, so that just deletes it. But if it's going to be on the right side of the book, then you would want to delete this one and keep the one on the right. I hope that makes sense. Then we also want our safe zone. All the safe zone is it's where you want all your text to be contained, just because you know for sure it's not going to get cut off when it's in the safe zone. But you can have part of your illustration outside of the safe zone. Probably just not anything that's like super important, kind of more like background stuff again. So for the safe zone, we want it to be basically 1/8 of an inch less than 1/2 an inch. You want to drag a guide out to 1/2 inch and then just move it back 1/8 of an inch. So you go to the 1/2, which is right here, and then you just go back 2 little marks right there. I'm going to pull this one down, and I'm going to go to the 1/2, and I'm just going to go back 2 little marks there. And then we can grab this guide and pull it in 3/8 of an inch. So we can add the 1/8 of an inch just to make it a little bit easier, like we have with the other ones. And then the next one is just going to go 2 more eighths. So it's going to be 3/8 of an inch over. You can kind of just eyeball it too and compare it to the other ones. But if it does become confusing, remember you can always just do the View, New Guide, and just actually calculate them. And then we're going to pull one down here and do 3/8 of an inch. I'll put all of these specific details in the description of the video too, so you can look it up. Again, if this is on the left side of the page, we can get rid of this trim one, but you still want to keep this safe zone because it's a good idea anyways to give some good margin around your text just design-wise. Now that we have our page all set up, then we can go ahead and start designing the layout. So the first thing you want to do is drop your art in. So I'm going to go over to my JPEG file here. I'm going to go to Select All, or you can do Command A, Control A, Edit, Copy, and then I'm going to go over to my Photoshop file here and Edit, Paste. And here's my art. Now if I wanted to move it around or resize it, I could always do Command T or Control T on Windows, and then I can make it bigger or smaller. But remember, you don't really want to make it bigger because it's going to get blurry. But one thing to keep in mind is you can hold down Shift, which will constrain your proportions so you don't stretch it out weird. And then you can also just move it around or whatever you want, and then press the check mark when you're done. Now that I have my artwork in here, I can go ahead and add my text. So to add the text, you want to click the letter T on your keyboard, and that's going to bring you to the text tool. You can see my cursor changed. You can also find the text tool in your toolbar if you'd rather do that, but it's the same thing. Now I'm going to just click wherever I want to put my text, and I will type out my text. Together they make. I am doing my text as separate pieces because I kind of like to work it into the image. So I'm going to have some text up here, some text on the cheese, and some on the bottom, and it's all going to make a sentence together. So this is only part of the sentence. So that's why I only put together they make. Then you can edit this text however you want. You can go to the properties panel, or you can also use this bar up here, but you can change the size of the text right here, and you can change how far apart the letters are. You can change the font. I'll go ahead and pick this font here. And then if you want to move this text element somewhere, then you can grab the little move tool and then grab your text and move it around. Sometimes when you use this tool, you might accidentally select the wrong thing, like this. If you're having issues with that, you can mess around with the auto select layer by turning this on or off. If it's checked, then it's going to automatically select what you click on, but sometimes it's hard to click exactly on a certain item. So then you can deselect it, and then it won't auto select. And you always want to go to your layers palette, which you could go to Window and then Layers if you don't see it. And these are the layers that are in your file. This is very important. If you have auto select layer turned off, then you can select the layer this way, and then no matter where you click, you'll be moving that layer. So these are just some of the little Photoshop basics, but I feel like they make a huge difference because if you don't really know these basics, then it's just so hard to use. So yeah, make sure you keep an eye on your layers palette. It's very important. So I added this text, and then a lot of times I like to add a little bit of something around the outside of the text, especially if it's on a busy background. But like with this one, the color of the text, which by the way, you can change the color also in the properties panel right here. But I feel like the color of the text might be a little bit clashing with the background. So what I can do is go to the layers palette and double click on the right side of the layer, and then I can do any of these blending options. Sometimes if there's like a really busy background behind it, then I like to put a stroke, but with this one it's not super busy, so I'll probably do an outer glow. And I like to change the color of it to make it kind of blend in a little bit better with the background, because you don't want it to be obvious. You want it to be very subtle where the person looking at it wouldn't really know, but it just makes it look better, but they don't know why. You can click on and off this preview and you can see it just gives a little bit of a glow there. Then I'll press OK. And the other thing is I also love to do curved text, especially if it's like around an object. That's really easy too. I'm going to click T to go to the text tool again. You can see this little button up here, text on a curve, and click it. And then I'm going to go to arc. And then you can just edit the bend right here and click OK. And then of course if you want to move it, you want to click on this move tool and then you can drag this down. I'm also going to add some text right here, part of the sentence. So I'm going to click T again to go back to my text tool, and I will click where I want it to be. And by the way, you can also change if you want it left aligned, center, or right aligned. So I'm going to type great feats. And then you can see that these are really close to each other. So I'm going to go to my properties panel, and that's going to be this here, the leading. So I can make this bigger. And you can just kind of mess around with it, get the right amount that you want. And then I want my text to be bigger too. So I could either change it here, but then I also have to change the leading when I do that. Or I can click the arrow tool and do the transform again, Command T or Control T. But remember, hold down Shift so you can strain the proportions. And then when you like it, press the check mark. Another thing that I really like to do is kind of just making the text look like it's part of the image. So if I go to the Layers palette, double click on the right side here again for the blending options. And then I can make this kind of look like it's cut out of the cheese. And for that, I'm going to do an inner shadow so that it's going to be kind of similar to these guys. And I like the shadow to be, you know, the similar color. So it would be like this, like a dark orange. Also, these guys have like a little glow around them, kind of like a little edge. So I'm going to go to the outer glow. And for the color, for this one, I want it to be like a light yellow. And now we can see the difference if we click the preview button. So it kind of looks like it's cut out of the cheese. I like that. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to add the last bit of text, which is going to be the word possible. And then I'm going to click my move tool again and move that. The other thing I wanted to show you though was the outline. So I'll do it for this, but really I kind of use it more for if I have text that's over something busy, like here. So let's actually put it here just so you can see. See how it's like really busy behind there? That makes it kind of hard to read. So I'm going to double click on the right side of the layer so I get my blending options again. And I'm going to do stroke, and then I want it to be very subtle, so I want it to be like the color of the background. So you can kind of just click around too, because there's going to be different shades of the same color around it. But once you get one where it's not super obvious like this, then you can click OK. And you can also mess around with the size. It's going to be different just depending on where you have it. This is probably good. So you don't even really notice it here. You notice it a little bit around this part, but it's not super obvious. So that still, it just makes it so much easier to read though. See, it really makes the letters kind of pop out a little better. And we click OK. Now this page design is done and we can save it. So I'm just going to go to File. First of all, you do want to save your file as a Photoshop file because you want to be able to make changes to it. So we're going to first actually do Save, and then we can name it Book Page 1. That's our Photoshop file. So now we want to save it as a JPEG with no compression. So we're going to do Save a Copy, and then you can go to JPEG and you can just name it Book Page 1. Save, and then you're going to get these options here. It's very important that you want the quality to be all the way up on maximum because you don't want any compression. And then I just leave it on progressive and click OK. And that's your first page. I hope this helped. After this one, I'm going to do a video on how to design a spread in Photoshop, and then I'll make videos for all the rest of the steps, like creating your PDF to bring into Amazon KDP and making your cover. So stay tuned for more videos, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks. Bye.